Well, hello there, class, and welcome to the start of another unit. I hope you are feeling a bit more comfortable now. I know that there's a lot of variables involved just in general with education, right? Graduate school adds a whole another level, full-time work for many of you, if not all of you, multiple classes, relationships, external, church, volunteer, leisure, all those things, they all make life quite busy. But I hope that as you have kind of dug into the content in this class, you realize that this is very reasonable, it's doable, and I would say even more than those two things, I hope that you found that it's enjoyable. It's so fun to read about your histories, and I'll get back to all of you this week. But it was fun to kind of hear your backgrounds and where you're from, what you've done, and where you're headed and what you want to accomplish. It was fun to read. Some of you have a pretty clearly laid out what your dream job is, and some think you might know, and others are just kind of in this process of, I'm not really sure. I'm still wrestling through what that looks like, and some of you on second degrees, master's degrees, and so forth. And so that's just fun for me. This process is perhaps the most fun part of this class. Well, clearly you're going to learn a lot of content. You're going to learn new things that you've never heard of before, perhaps you've never learned before, you didn't, maybe even know existed. And you're going to be able to learn, how do I apply that to my client base? But I would say more than that, or maybe as much, just along the lines, kind of parallel to that, is you will learn what this means for you. It's interesting. I started meeting with a new client even just last night, and was referred to me by a mutual colleague. And it was interesting as I'm sitting there talking with this individual, hearing a lot of the interwoven realities of some of the other time they spent with a counselor, and then here talking about career and how they're really not separate. And so my hope is, as you've dug into the content thus far, you have started to explore the text on well-being, and you've gotten into Tang in the readings, and looking at Schwen and Bass. You have seen that there's some interloping, if you will, of this content, that they're not separate, they're not siloed. And it was interesting, as I was even just discussing with this individual last night, the work that I've been given to do along the lines of career development. It's fascinating to me. My life's work has become this work. And I don't, 10 years ago, 11 years, 12, 15 years ago, I would have never, ever thought that would be the case. And so as you are kind of exploring and figuring out what's next for you, you're in this degree to become a licensed marriage and family therapist, a licensed professional clinical counselor. Those are great things. But maybe you're not exactly sure where you want to end up, what your trajectory is as far as what that specific niche area that you want to spend the vast majority of the rest of your life kind of knowing. I think that's okay. Because, again, as I went through grad school, and then I took additional graduate courses, and, started in a couple of MBA programs and realized that wasn't going to be it, and went on to management, and, it did a number of things. My trajectory is not what I anticipated it to be, and yet I look at where I am today, and I'm so grateful getting to do career strategy, career development work full time for a graduate only university. That's exciting. Getting to teach this class for the last 8 years almost. That's exciting. Developing the class, teaching other career classes. Taking this content and going into the undergrad. I'm teaching an undergraduate class this semester as well, and a class focused on vocation. Doing that, and then doing work on the side, some private counseling and coaching for the last almost 11 years. And then I even thought about the work that I do in the church, and the reading that I do is all about faith and work and the integration thereof. I just can't get away from this, and I don't want to. I just love this because I see the value of good work. I see the value even biblically. I see that in the beginning we were created, and work is not, we don't work because of the fall. We've been working. God was a worker. He was also a rester, right? So on the seventh day rested. And so work is something that is integral to, I think, the human identity. And so this week, this unit, we have a lot to look at. We're going to look at In the second unit, we'll be starting on today. We're going to look at work in a global context, right? So what are some cross-cultural perspectives in career development? We'll continue to look at well-being. I have some articles that I want you to read that continue along those lines. Really from Gallup and this idea of well-being. Came across a really interesting article yesterday. Just woke up in the morning, there it was. I love the timing of these things. And the article was about what having a bad job actually does to your body. I thought that was pretty fascinating. So I want you to read those additional articles. There's some optional discussions. If you get into the actual module itself, into Unit 2, you will see that we have a good amount still to accomplish. Obviously, this video. There's another video from Jim Harder, who's the co-author of Wellbeing. And then there's 3 articles. There's Wellbeing in the Workplace. There's This is What Happens to Your Body When You Hate Your Job, and Your Career Wellbeing and Your Identity. There's the optional discussion, which I hope that you'll just kind of jump into. I'd love to hear from you there. And then you have your second Schwen and Bass entry and discussion, so make sure that you do that from the time limits that are clearly lined out in the syllabus. You have your second case study, which you can see is from page 44, I believe, in the Tang text. 44. There's a few questions in there, and then you have your well-being response paper that's due by the end of this unit. Okay, so again, not a ton to do, but enough to keep you busy. Hopefully the reading is something that you're enjoying, and we just continue to dig into this content. So I just encourage you, make the most of this class, and really be asking yourself the questions of what does this mean for me, right? What does this mean for my future? Where can I take this? What could it potentially end up helping me to do and to be and how to think? And I would say never rule out the possibilities of what the future may hold, because we just don't know. And you may be pleasantly surprised that what you had thought you were going to do, you may not do. And so I think some of the content that we'll learn in this class is going to help you. I'm going to make an assumption here, but it will help you to say, okay, so now that I know this, I love this idea of kind of the burden of responsibility. Now that you know, what are you going to do with it? Not just what are you going to do with it professionally, but I would even encourage you to ask yourself, what are you going to do with it personally? How are you going to put this into practice? What difference will it make in your life? And as you think about the future, let's say you take a detour and you end up, in a completely different direction than where you thought you might end up. Perhaps this content that we're exploring, you can then look back on and go, that's interesting. Now I see, personally, I see in my life how what I learned is actually benefiting me, how it's coming to fruition. I see how it now tangibly plays out. And then those stories that you have personally can end up helping you and aiding you in the work that you do with others professionally. I think, and I've said this, I think, before, and I'll continue to say it again, that the better we understand ourselves, the better we lead ourselves, the more emotional intelligence that we have ourselves, I think the better we will lead other people, and I think the more people will follow us. I think, let me back up. I know that people see right through a fake. They see right through somebody who's, that fake it till you make it. There's some truth there, but at the same time, if you are to be viewed as an expert, is to be viewed as someone who is, kind of, you're claiming to know what you know, you need to actually know those things. And I think that when we're telling somebody this whole idea of do as I say, not as I do, in this modern day generation, in our world today, that just doesn't fly anymore. And so if we're working with clients and we're telling them, or we're encouraging them, we're challenging them, or we're coaxing things out of them, we're asking these intentional questions, they will see if we do that or not. Even if we don't explicitly say we don't do or we do those things, they'll see that in us. And so I think the more that we can spend time focused on us, that's why we have you go through personal therapy and counseling while you're in this program before you even start to conduct that with other people. We want you to work through what it is that you bring to the table. And I think in the same way, this whole idea of career, given the fact that we spend so much of our waking hours at our jobs, it becomes who we are if we're not careful. And I say that if very thoughtfully and intentionally, because I don't think that our identity should be, and I don't think I could say it needs to be wrapped up in what we do for work. However, we must remember that it is really important, this work that we do. And so finding places that we can connect and finding plays that we can contribute and we feel like we're making a difference, that's important to us as individuals. And I think that's going to be important for you as you work with your clients. So as we enter into Unit 2, remember we've got some deadlines. You've got the case study that's due. You've got your discussions. Your response is due by this Sunday, and then you'll chime in and interact with your classmates by the end of the second unit. But remember, here's the thing. Don't just have be a one thing, right? So I post my content, and then I respond to somebody else, and it's done. No, this is an engaged conversation, right? So it's a back and forth. And I would say this, don't limit the conversations that you engage in to something that someone wrote and then you responded to. If there's something that somebody else wrote and then somebody chimed in and then there's a back and forth, you read it and go, oh, that's a great point. Like actually engage in those discussions. And I know that we have a small class, and at the same time, I think some really meaningful and powerful conversations can take place. I want to implore you to really make the most of these discussions. I didn't see exactly where all of you were from, some from the San Diego Center, some from other places in our MFT regional campuses. But I hope that you'll make these connections and these will be relationships that you'll establish. That's the beauty of online education, is that it doesn't matter location. And so you have these relationships that are established maybe for the first time in this class, and they continue on as a support throughout the rest of the program and even into your future careers. So if you have any questions, of course, let me know. I'm only an email away. I'm happy to answer any and all questions that you may have. Again, I'm here to support you however I can. And ultimately, I'm here to support you in your careers. I think that's what's so important about this class. If I can help in any way with that, if you want to kind of talk through what does it look like to do some of these things for yourself, ask some of these questions for yourself, let's have that discussion. Happy to do that. All right. Have a great week. I'll come back middle of this unit, say some more thoughts that I have to share with you, and I look forward to seeing you online this unit. Have a great time in discussion. I'm looking forward to learning from you as we enter into Unit 2.